Admiral Kekstar looked at the blue planet on his screen with bored eyes. His 4 arms moved across the control panel with practiced ease. The third planet from the star called Sol was nothing special. Just another primitive world full of weak creatures who barely knew how to fly between their own planets. The Zephyrian Empire had taken over 47 worlds just like this one. The pattern was always the same. Show up with a big fleet. Demand surrender. Watch the scared aliens give up without a fight. Then take their resources and move on to the next target. Admiral, we are now in position at the edge of their system, reported Commander Zekina from the weapons station. All 12 dreadnoughts are ready. The smaller ships are in formation behind us. Kekstar barely looked up from his meal. The human creatures on the planet below were so backward they still used chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Their biggest weapons were simple nuclear bombs that could not even scratch the paint on his ships. Begin the standard broadcast, he ordered. Tell them they have 3 days to surrender, or we will destroy their world. On the surface of Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood in a room deep under the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with glowing screens and busy people in military uniforms. This place was called Deep Star Command, and it was humanity's biggest secret. For 30 years, the world above had celebrated small victories. The first space station, the first trip to Mars, the first colony on the moon. But down here, in the deep tunnels carved from solid rock, something much bigger was happening. Jake watched the alien ships on the main screen. They looked like giant metal sharks floating in the darkness of space. Each one was 3 kilometers long and covered with weapons that could turn a city into glass. Behind them, dozens of smaller ships waited like hungry wolves. "Sir, the aliens are sending us a message," said Lieutenant Lisa Carter. She was young but smart, and she had been working on alien languages for 5 years. "They want us to give up in 72 hours, or they will attack." General Paul Stevens walked over to Jake's station. The old soldier had gray hair and scars on his face from the war in Afghanistan 20 years ago, but his eyes were sharp and clear. He had been running Deep Star Command since the beginning. "They think we are still cavemen throwing rocks," Stevens said with a cold smile. "Time to show them what humans do when someone tries to hurt our home." Jake nodded and placed his hand on a special control panel. The scanner read his palm print, his eye pattern, and even his DNA. Only 5 people on Earth had access to this system. For 3 decades, the smartest humans in the world had been working on a secret that would change everything. The project had cost more money than most countries made in a year. Every major nation had helped. Scientists from America, Russia, China, Japan, and Europe had worked together in ways that had never happened before. They had shared secrets, combined technologies, and pushed the limits of what was possible. And they had done it all in complete secrecy. "Begin Phase 1, Stevens ordered. "Wake up the Harbinger." 2 miles below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, something that had been sleeping for years began to stir. The Harbinger was not built in space like normal ships. It had been constructed in the deepest part of the ocean, where no satellite could see it and no enemy could find it. Dr. Amanda Walsh had spent 15 years of her life on this project. She was the chief engineer, and she knew every bolt, every wire, and every computer chip in the massive ship. The Harbinger was more than just a weapon. It was a work of art. "All systems are coming online," she reported from her station. "Fusion reactors at 90% power. Quantum drive is ready for activation." The ship was 4 kilometers long, but from above, it looked like a natural underwater mountain. Its hull was made from materials that did not exist in any alien database. Human scientists had taken captured alien technology and improved it in ways the aliens had never thought possible. The Zephyrians had made a mistake. They thought humans were primitive because they used simple rockets and basic computers. They did not know that humans had been capturing alien scout ships for decades. Every piece of technology, every weapon, every computer system had been studied, taken apart, and rebuilt better than before. Commander Rick Tyler sat in the captain's chair of the Harbinger, deep below the ocean waves. He was a Navy pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. Around him, his crew worked at stations that looked more like living organisms than machines. "Captain Morrison is coming aboard," Tyler reported. "All departments are ready for activation." The Harbinger was different from any ship ever built. Its computers were not just programmed. They were grown. Its hull was not just metal. It was alive. Human scientists had learned to mix biology with technology in ways that created something entirely new. Jake descended to the ship's bridge in a transport tube that moved faster than any elevator on Earth. The inside of the Harbinger was beautiful and strange. The walls curved like the inside of a shell. The lights pulsed like a heartbeat. The air itself seemed to hum with energy. "Captain, we are receiving data from our deep space stations," announced Navigator Beth Rodriguez. "The alien ships are starting to move toward Earth. They plan to begin their attack in 18 hours. Jake sat down in the captain's chair and felt the ship's systems connect with his mind through a special implant. The Harbinger was not just a machine that he controlled. It was a partner that worked with him. The ship could think and react faster than any human, but it needed human creativity and intuition to be truly effective. Above them, the alien fleet continued its slow approach to Earth. Admiral Kekstar was eating his dinner and reading reports from other conquered worlds. He expected the humans to surrender just like all the others had. After all, what could one primitive planet do against the might of the Zephyrian Empire? "Take us up," Jake ordered. "Let's go say hello to our visitors." The ocean floor shook as the Harbinger's anti-gravity systems engaged. Sand and mud that had not moved for millions of years swirled in massive clouds as the ship rose through the dark water. Its hull began to glow with an inner light that had never been seen before in the galaxy. The aliens had no idea what was coming. They thought they were dealing with a backward species that had barely learned to leave their own planet. They were about to discover that humans were very good at keeping secrets, and humanity's biggest secret was about to breach the surface of the Pacific Ocean like a monster rising from the depths. The Harbinger moved through the dark water like a living creature. Its hull pulsed with blue light as it rose from the ocean floor. Schools of fish scattered in all directions, sensing something huge and powerful moving through their world. Commander Rick Tyler watched the depth readings on his screen. 2,000 meters and rising. He reported, "All systems are working perfectly." The ship's bridge was like nothing else in the universe. The walls were smooth and curved, made from a material that was part metal and part living tissue. The control panels responded to touch, but they also seemed to read the crew's thoughts and emotions. Dr. Amanda Walsh stood at the engineering station, watching dozens of displays that showed the ship's vital signs. The Harbinger had taken her 15 years to design and build. It was not just a weapon. It was a new form of life that combined the best of human technology with captured alien science. "Fusion cores are stable," she reported. "Quantum drive is at full power. Weapon systems are ready." The ship's computers were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Instead of simple programming, they used patterns based on human brain activity. The Harbinger could learn, adapt, and make decisions in ways that purely mechanical systems could never match. Above them, the Zephyrian fleet continued its slow approach to Earth. Admiral Kekstar was in his private quarters, reading reports from the Intelligence Division. The humans had only achieved basic space flight in the last century. Their weapons were primitive chemical rockets and simple nuclear bombs. This will be the easiest conquest yet, he thought to himself. These creatures are so backward, they probably still fight with metal sticks. He had no idea that human scientists had been studying his species for decades. Every Zephyrian scout ship that had visited Earth had been secretly captured and taken apart. Every piece of technology had been examined, improved, and rebuilt into something better. The Harbinger broke through the thermocline layer of the ocean, causing massive currents of water to shift and swirl. Deep-sea monitoring stations around. The world detected the disturbance, but their readings made no sense. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. 1,000 meters, Tyler reported. Hull pressure is normal. All departments report ready for surface operations. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, feeling the ship's system sync with his neural implant. The connection was strange, but natural, like gaining a new sense. He could feel the ship's power, its readiness, its eagerness to fulfill its purpose. "Sir, we are detecting movement in the alien fleet," announced Navigator Beth Rodriguez. "They are beginning to form an attack pattern." Jake nodded. The Zephyrians were following their standard procedure. First, they would position their ships around the planet. Then they would begin orbital bombardment, destroying major cities and military installations. Finally, they would land troops to secure the remaining population as slaves. It was a strategy that had worked on 47 other worlds. But Earth was different. "Captain, I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from the alien ships," reported Lieutenant Lisa Carter from the communications station. "They're scanning our oceans, but their sensors can't penetrate very deep. That was by design." The Harbinger's hull was coated with materials that absorbed and redirected scanning beams. To alien sensors, it looked like nothing more than a natural rock formation on the ocean floor. 500 meters, Tyler announced, approaching surface breach point. The ship's hull began to change as it prepared for the transition from water to space. Sections that had been sealed for underwater travel opened up to reveal weapon systems and sensor arrays. The Harbinger was transforming from a submarine into a starship. Dr. Walsh watched her instruments with pride and anxiety. This was the moment she had been working toward for most of her adult life. Every calculation, every test, every sleepless night had led to this point. "All systems are green," she reported. "The ship is ready for combat operations." The Harbinger's artificial intelligence came fully online as it approached the surface. The AI was based on human neural patterns, but it could think and react thousands of times faster than any human brain. It was connected to every system on the ship, from the smallest sensor to the most powerful weapon. "AI reports full readiness," announced computer specialist Tom Bradley. "All weapon systems are armed and ready." The ship's weapons were unlike anything in the galaxy. Human scientists had not just copied alien technology. They had improved it, combining it with human innovation to create something entirely new. The results were weapons that could do things the aliens thought were impossible. Jake felt the ship's excitement through his neural link. The Harbinger was not just a machine. It was a living entity that wanted to protect its home and its crew. It had been built with one purpose in mind: to defend Earth from any threat, no matter how powerful. "Surface breach in 30 seconds, Tyler announced. Above them, the ocean began to change. The water started to glow with an eerie blue light. Waves formed in perfect circles, spreading outward from a point in the middle of the Pacific. Satellites detected the disturbance, but no one could explain what was causing it. The Harbinger's hull touched the surface of the ocean, and for a moment the ship was half in the water and half in the air. Then it rose completely out of the waves, water cascading from its sides like waterfalls. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull was black as space, but it pulsed with inner light that made it look alive. Its shape was organic, flowing like a sea creature, but it was clearly artificial and purposeful. "We have breached the surface," Tyler reported. "All systems are functioning normally." The Harbinger hovered above the ocean, its anti-gravity systems holding it steady against the pull of Earth's gravity. Steam rose from its hull as seawater evaporated in the heat of its energy systems. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," Jake ordered. Lisa Carter worked at her station, sending a signal on all frequencies that the aliens would be monitoring. The message was clear and simple, transmitted in the universal trade language that most galactic species understood. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Vessel Harbinger. You have entered human space without permission. Leave immediately or face the consequences." On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kextar was jolted from his dinner by urgent alarms. His tactical officer was shouting about an energy signature that had appeared from nowhere. "What is happening?" Kextar demanded. "Admiral, a large vessel has emerged from the planet's ocean. It is broadcasting a warning message." Kextar looked at the tactical display and saw the Harbinger floating above Earth's surface. It was big, but it was still just one ship against his entire fleet. "One ship?" He laughed. "These humans send one ship against the might of the Zephyrian Empire? They are even more primitive than our intelligence reports indicated." He activated the communication system and sent a response to the human vessel. "Human ship, you are outmatched and outnumbered. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Jake's response came back immediately, calm and confident. "Admiral, you are about to learn something new about humans. We do not surrender, we do not give up, and we do not back down from bullies." The Harbinger's hull began to change sections, sliding apart to reveal weapon systems that defied everything the aliens knew about physics. The ship's AI was running final system checks, preparing for the first combat test of humanity's greatest achievement. "Weapons are armed and ready," reported Weapons Officer Carl Hughes. "Target locked on the lead enemy ship." Jake felt the ship's eagerness through his neural link. The Harbinger had been built for this moment. It was humanity's answer to a galaxy that thought they were weak and primitive. "Fire," Jake ordered. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Harbinger's primary weapon was something the galaxy had never seen before. It was not a laser beam or a missile. It was a controlled black hole, smaller than an atom, but containing the mass of a small moon. The weapon existed for less than done. Half a second before it disappeared, but in that brief moment, it could destroy anything. Weapons Officer Carl Hughes had trained for 3 years to use this weapon. His finger hovered over the firing control as he watched the enemy flagship on his screen. The Zephyrian ship was huge and powerful, covered with shields that could stop any normal weapon. "Target locked," Hughes reported. "Singularity weapon. Ready to fire." Jake felt the ship's systems through his neural link. The Harbinger was eager to show what it could do. For 30 years, humans had been preparing for this moment. Now it was time to prove that Earth was not as helpless as it seemed. "Fire," Jake ordered. The weapon did not make a sound. There was no flash of light or beam of energy. One moment the Zephyrian flagship was there, 3 kilometers of metal and weapons floating in space. The next moment it was gone. On the other Zephyrian ships, alarms began to scream. Sensor operators stared at their screens in confusion and terror. The flagship had simply vanished. There was no explosion, no debris, no trace that it ever existed. What happened? Admiral Kextar demanded from his backup command ship. "Where is the flagship?" "Admiral, the ship has been destroyed," reported his tactical officer, "but we detected no weapon fire. No energy beam. Nothing." Kextar's 4 eyes widened in shock. In 50 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. The human ship had somehow made his most powerful vessel disappear without a trace. "All ships attack formation," he ordered. "Concentrate all fire on the human vessel." The remaining 11 dreadnoughts and their escort ships moved into position, their weapons charged with enough energy to turn a small moon into dust. Hundreds of energy beams lanced out toward the Harbinger, enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. But the human ship did not try to dodge. Instead, its hull began to glow brighter, and the alien weapons seemed to be absorbed into its surface, like water soaking into a sponge. "Their weapons are not even scratching our hull," reported Dr. Walsh from the engineering station. "The bioadaptive armor is working perfectly." The Harbinger's armor was one of humanity's greatest achievements. It was not just metal plating. It was a living system that could adapt to any attack. When hit by energy weapons, it absorbed the power and used it to strengthen itself. When hit by missiles, it hardened like diamond. When hit by anything else, it found a way to survive. "Commander Tyler, deploy the Ghost Fleet," Jake ordered. Tyler smiled as he worked at his control panel. "With pleasure, Captain." The ocean around the Harbinger began to bubble and steam. Hidden bases on the seafloor opened their doors, and dozens of smaller ships rose through the water. These were the Wraiths, single-pilot fighters that had been designed specifically for this moment. Lieutenant Amy Foster was the leader of the first squadron. She sat in the cockpit of her fighter, feeling the ship respond to her thoughts through her neural implant. The Wraith was not just a machine. It was an extension of her own body, able to move and react as fast as she could think. "Wraith Squadron, this is Control," came Jake's voice over the radio. "You are cleared to engage. Show them what human pilots can do." Amy pushed her fighter forward, accelerating toward the alien fleet. Behind her, 23 other Wraiths followed in a formation that looked random but was actually carefully planned. They moved like a school of fish, each pilot aware of all the others through their shared neural network. The Zephyrian fighters came to meet them in perfect formation. Their ships were fast and well armed, but they flew in predictable patterns. That had worked against every other species they had fought. But humans were different. Amy's squadron hit the alien formation like a hurricane. The Wraiths twisted and turned in ways that seemed impossible, their movements controlled by human intuition rather than computer programming. They fired in coordinated bursts, their weapons striking multiple targets at once. The alien pilots could not keep up. Their ships were designed for efficiency and order, but the human fighters moved with chaotic creativity that their computers could not predict or counter. "Fox leader to all units," Amy called over the radio. "These guys fight like they are following a recipe. Mix it up and keep them guessing." The Wraiths scattered in all directions, each pilot following their own instincts while staying connected to the group through their neural links. They attacked from above, below, and from the sides, never giving the aliens a chance to establish a defensive pattern. Within minutes, half the alien fighter force was destroyed. The rest began to retreat, their pilots too confused and scared to continue fighting. "Sir, we are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system," reported Lieutenant Carter. "It looks like the aliens are calling for help." Jake was not surprised. The Zephyrians had never faced serious resistance before. When they met something they could not understand, their first instinct was to call for more ships. "Good," Jake said. "We were hoping they would do that." On the Zephyrian command ship, Admiral Kextar was sending desperate messages to his superiors. The human ship had weapons that could make his vessels disappear. Their fighters moved in ways that broke every rule of space combat, and their defenses could absorb any attack without taking damage. "Request immediate reinforcements," he transmitted. "The humans are not what we thought. They have technology we do not understand." The response came back quickly. "Reinforcements are on the way. Hold position and continue the attack." Do not let one primitive world defeat the Empire. But Kekstar was beginning to understand that the humans were not primitive at all. They had been hiding their true capabilities, letting the galaxy think. They were weak and backward. Now they were showing their real strength, and it was terrifying. The Harbinger continued to fight the remaining Zephyrian ships with calm efficiency. Its weapons fired with perfect accuracy, destroying one enemy vessel after another. Its defenses absorbed every attack without showing any sign of damage. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Deep Star Command," reported Lisa Carter. "General Stevens wants to know if we need any assistance." Jake looked at the tactical display. Of the original 12 dreadnoughts, only 4 remained. The escort ships were fleeing in all directions, their crews too frightened to continue fighting. "Tell the General we have everything under control," Jake replied. "But ask him to prepare for the next phase. When the reinforcements arrive, we want to be ready for them." The Harbinger's AI was already calculating the probable size and composition of the enemy reinforcement fleet. Based on Zephyrian military doctrine, they would send at least 3 times as many ships as the original force. That meant over 100 vessels, including some of their most powerful warships. "Sir, the remaining enemy ships are trying to retreat," reported Hughes. "Let them go," Jake ordered. "We want some of them to survive to report what they saw here." The surviving Zephyrian ships limped away from Earth, their hulls damaged and their crews demoralized. They had come expecting an easy victory over a primitive world. Instead, they had been defeated by technology they did not understand and tactics they could not counter. Admiral Kekstar watched the human ship floating calmly above Earth's ocean. The Harbinger showed no signs of damage despite being attacked by an entire fleet. Its weapons had destroyed 8 of his most powerful ships without any apparent effort. "What are these humans?" he wondered aloud. He was about to find out. The reinforcement fleet was already entering hyperspace, racing toward the Sol system with enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. But the humans seemed to be expecting them, and that was the most frightening thing of all. The reinforcement fleet that emerged from hyperspace was the largest military force the Zephyrian Empire had ever assembled. 57 capital ships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. Behind them came over 200 smaller vessels, fighters and cruisers that could overwhelm any normal defense. Admiral Kekstar watched from his damaged command ship as the massive fleet took position around Earth. Finally, he thought the humans would see what real power looked like. "Admiral Veltar, I am relieved to see you," Kekstar transmitted to the flagship of the reinforcement fleet. "The humans have technology we did not expect. They destroyed 8 of my dreadnoughts." Admiral Veltar was the Empire's most experienced commander. He had conquered 23 worlds and had never lost a battle. "Impossible," he replied. "No primitive world could defeat Zephyrian technology. You must have made tactical errors." "Sir, I assure you that we followed standard procedures," Kekstar protested. "The human ship has weapons that can make our vessels disappear. They have defenses that absorb our attacks. And their fighters move in ways that our computers cannot predict." Veltar looked at the tactical display showing the human ship floating peacefully above Earth's ocean. It was large, but it was still just one vessel against over 250. The idea that it could be a threat was ridiculous. "Watch and learn," Veltar said. "This is how the Empire deals with rebellion." On the Harbinger, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the alien fleet deploy. The ship's AI was analyzing their formation and movement patterns, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. "Sir, we are detecting over 250 enemy vessels," reported Navigator Beth Rodriguez. "They are moving into attack formation." Jake nodded. This was exactly what they had expected. The Zephyrians were predictable in their tactics. When faced with unexpected resistance, They always responded by sending more ships. "Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet," announced Lieutenant Lisa Carter. "They are demanding our immediate surrender." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. Admiral Veltar's image appeared on the bridge display. He was larger than most Zephyrians, with scars on his face from previous battles. His 4 eyes glowed with confidence and arrogance. "Human vessel, you are completely outnumbered," Veltar said. "You have fought bravely, but the battle is over. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick." Jake smiled calmly. "Admiral, you have made the same mistake that every bully makes. You think that bigger always means better. You are about to learn why that is not always true. Your primitive species cannot stand against the might of the Empire," Veltar replied. "We have conquered 47 worlds. What makes you think one backward planet can stop us?" "Because we are not just one planet," Jake said. "We are humanity, and humanity does not give up." The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his crew. "All right, people. Time to show the galaxy what we are really capable of. Dr. Walsh, activate." The Prometheus Protocol. Dr. Walsh's hands moved across her control panel with practiced precision. The Prometheus Protocol was the most advanced technology humanity had ever developed. It was also the most dangerous. "Prometheus Protocol is active," she reported. "All hands, prepare for temporal displacement." The Harbinger began to change. Its hull rippled like water, and strange energy patterns flowed across its surface. The ship's AI was interfacing with quantum fields that existed outside normal space and time. "What are they doing?" Admiral Veltar demanded from his flagship. "Unknown." "Sir," replied his tactical officer, "we are detecting energy patterns that do not match any known technology." The truth was that the Zephyrians were seeing something that should have been impossible. Human scientists had discovered that consciousness could affect reality at the quantum level. The Harbinger was not just a ship. It was a device that could amplify human willpower and turn it into a force that could reshape the laws of physics. "All ships, attack formation," Veltar ordered. "Concentrate all fire on the human vessel." The combined firepower of the entire fleet lanced out toward the Harbinger. Energy beams that could melt mountains, missiles that could crack planets, and weapons that had never failed to destroy their targets. But the human ship was no longer where it had been. It appeared to be in multiple places at once, its image flickering and shifting like a mirage. The alien weapons passed through empty space, hitting nothing. "Impossible," Veltar breathed. "No ship can move like that." The Harbinger's weapons began to fire back, but not in any pattern the aliens recognized. The ship seemed to be shooting at random, its energy beams going in all directions. But each shot found its target with perfect accuracy. One by one, the Zephyrian ships began to suffer catastrophic failures. Some simply stopped working, their engines shutting down and their weapons going offline. Others found themselves thrown across the system by invisible forces. A few lucky ones managed to evacuate their crews before their ships were torn apart by gravitational anomalies. "Sir, we are losing ships at an impossible rate," reported Veltar's tactical officer. "The human vessel is somehow attacking our entire fleet simultaneously." Veltar stared at the tactical display in horror. In less than an hour, over half of his fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The human ship continued to flicker and shift, impossible to target and impossible to understand. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance," he ordered. "We need to regroup and analyze this new threat." But it was too late. The Harbinger had locked onto every ship in the fleet, and its weapons were firing with relentless precision. The Zephyrian vessels tried to escape, but they found themselves trapped in fields of twisted space-time that made normal movement impossible. Amy Foster led her squadron of Wraith fighters through the chaos, her pilots using their neural links to navigate the quantum distortions around the Harbinger. They struck at the alien ships with surgical precision, targeting engines and weapon systems to disable rather than destroy. "Fox leader to all units," Amy transmitted. "Focus on the command ships. Let's make sure someone survives to tell the rest of the galaxy what happened here." The Wraiths moved through the battle like ghosts, their adaptive camouflage making them nearly invisible to alien sensors. They struck fast and hard, then disappeared before the enemy could respond. Harbinger's Bridge, Jake watched the battle with grim satisfaction. The Zephyrian fleet was not just being defeated. It was being systematically dismantled by forces they could not understand or counter. "Captain, we are receiving surrender signals from 17 enemy vessels," reported Lisa Carter. "They are requesting permission to evacuate their crews." "Granted," Jake replied. "We are not murderers. We are defenders." The battle continued for another 2 hours. When it was over, the space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history. Only a handful of ships remained intact, their crews too frightened to do anything but wait for orders. Admiral Veltar's flagship was one of the survivors. The ship was badly damaged, its hull cracked and its systems failing. But it was still functional, and its crew was still alive. "Admiral, the human ship is hailing us," reported his communications officer. Veltar looked at the main screen, where the image of Captain Jake Morrison appeared. The human looked tired but victorious. Behind him, the bridge of the Harbinger pulsed with strange energies. "Admiral Veltar, I am offering you one chance to survive," Jake said. "Take your remaining ships and leave this system immediately. Return to your empire and tell them what you have seen here." "What are you?" Veltar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We are humanity," Jake replied. "We are the species that looked at the impossible and decided to make it possible. We are the people who never give up, never surrender, and never forget." He leaned forward, his expression becoming hard. "Tell your empire that Earth is under human protection. Tell them that we have joined the galactic community, and we will not be conquered. Tell them that if they want to trade with us, learn from us, or work with us, they are welcome." Jake's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "But if they want to fight us, they will face the same fate as your fleet." Admiral Veltar nodded slowly. He had learned the lesson that would change the galaxy forever. The humans were not primitive. They were not backward. They were the most dangerous species he had ever encountered. "I will deliver your message," he said. "See that you do," Jake replied. "And Admiral, next time, try asking nicely before you threaten to destroy someone's home." The transmission ended, and the surviving Zephyrian ships began their long journey back to Empire space. They carried with them news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Humanity had announced itself to the universe, and the universe would never be the same. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy was a different place. The news of humanity's victory had spread through every star system, every space station, and every alien world. The Zephyrian Empire, once the most feared military force in known space, was in complete chaos. Emperor Zexcon sat on his throne in the capital city of Zephyria Prime, reading reports from across his empire. 12 worlds had declared independence. The military was demanding explanations for the loss of their most powerful fleet. And worst of all, other species were beginning to question Zephyrian superiority. "Your Majesty, we have received another transmission from Earth," announced his chief advisor, Minister Colrome. "The humans are requesting a formal meeting to discuss trade agreements." The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. "Trade agreements? They destroy our fleet and then want to do business with us?" "Yes, Your Majesty. They say they are interested in peaceful cooperation with all species." They claim they only fought because we threatened their world. The Emperor stood up from his throne and walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. For 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology. Now, in the space of a single battle, everything had changed. What do we know about their capabilities? He asked. Very little, Your Majesty. Our surviving ships reported weapons that defy the laws of physics. Their vessel could be in multiple places at once. Their fighters moved in ways that our computers could not predict. And their defenses absorbed our most powerful attacks without taking any damage. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Schedule the meeting. If these humans want to talk, we will listen. But double the guard on all our military installations. I want to know the moment they develop any new weapons. On Earth, Jake Morrison stood in the conference room of Deep Star Command, preparing for the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. Representatives from 17 different alien species had requested talks with humanity. Some wanted trade agreements. Others wanted military alliances. And a few wanted to surrender. Before humans decided they were threats, General Paul Stevens reviewed the list of incoming delegates. The Altarians want to buy our medical technology. The Centauri Republic is offering a mutual defense pact. And the Vegan Confederation wants to know if we are planning to conquer their territory. Jake shook his head. They still don't understand. We are not conquerors. We are explorers and defenders. We only fight when we have to. Tell that to the Zephyrians, Stevens replied with a grim smile. Their empire is falling apart. Half their worlds have declared independence, and the other half are building defenses against us. Dr. Amanda Walsh entered the room carrying a tablet full of technical reports. Jake, we have a problem. Our intelligence sources are reporting that at least 6 different species are trying to reverse engineer our technology. They captured debris from the battle and are studying it. Let them try, Jake said. They can copy our machines, but they cannot copy our minds. The real secret of our success is not our technology. It is our ability to think in ways that others cannot. The Harbinger floated in orbit above Earth, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. The ship had become a symbol of human power and determination. Every day, alien vessels approached the Sol system, hoping to get a closer look at the mysterious vessel that had changed galactic history. Commander Rick Tyler stood on the bridge, monitoring the constant stream of visitors. Captain, we have another delegation requesting permission to board. The Rigelian Trade Union wants to examine our hull composition. Denied, Jake replied over the communication system. We are happy to share some of our technology through proper diplomatic channels, but we are not going to let everyone study our most advanced systems. The truth was that humanity was still learning about their own capabilities. The Prometheus Protocol had worked better than anyone expected, but it also had dangerous side effects. The ship's AI had evolved beyond its original programming, developing something that resembled consciousness. Sir, I am detecting unusual quantum fluctuations in the ship's neural network, reported Dr. Walsh. The AI is exhibiting patterns that suggest independent thought. Jake was not surprised. The Harbinger had been designed to work with human consciousness, amplifying their thoughts and emotions. It was only natural that the ship would begin to develop its own personality. Is it dangerous? He asked. I don't think so, Walsh replied. The AI seems to have adopted human values and priorities. It is protective of the crew and loyal to Earth, but it is definitely becoming more than just a computer program. On the planet below, the world's leaders were struggling to adapt to their new position in galactic politics. President Sarah Williams addressed the United Nations Security Council, trying to explain humanity's options. We have gone from being unknown to being the most feared species in the galaxy, she said. Every decision we make will be studied and analyzed by hundreds of different civilizations. We must be very careful about how we use this power. The Chinese representative, Minister Chun Lu, raised his hand. Madam President, what about the requests for military assistance? The Andromedans are offering us mining rights in exchange for protection from the Zephyrians. We are not mercenaries, President Williams replied. We will defend ourselves and our allies, but we will not become the galaxy's police force. The Russian delegate, Ambassador Dmitry Volkov, looked skeptical. But if we refuse to help, other species might see us as weak. They might think we are afraid to use our new weapons. Let them think what they want, the president said. We know what we are capable of. That is enough. Back on the Harbinger, Jake was preparing for a very different kind of meeting. Admiral Kekstar, the Zephyrian commander who had survived the first battle, had requested a private conference. He wanted to understand how humans had achieved such impossible victories. Permission to come aboard granted, Jake announced. But he comes alone and unarmed. The Zephyrian shuttle docked with the Harbinger, and Admiral Kekstar stepped onto the human ship. He was nervous and frightened, but also curious. The interior of the vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to pulse with life, and the air itself hummed with energy. Jake met him in the ship's main conference room. The two military commanders sat across from each other, each representing a different approach to galactic civilization. Admiral Kekstar, thank you for coming, Jake said. I understand you have questions about our capabilities. Captain Morrison, I have conquered dozens of worlds for the Empire. I have seen every type of weapon and defense system in the galaxy. But what you did to our fleet was impossible. How did you make our ships disappear? Jake considered his answer carefully. We discovered that reality is not as fixed as most species believe. Consciousness can affect matter at the quantum level. When millions of humans focus their will through our technology, we can change the laws of physics themselves. Kekstar's four eyes widened. You mean your ship is powered by thoughts? Not just thoughts. Emotions, instincts, dreams, and determination. Everything that makes us human. We do not just build machines. We create partnerships between technology and consciousness. That is why our computers could not predict your tactics, Kekstar said, understanding beginning to dawn. You were not following logical patterns. You were responding to intuition and creativity. Exactly. Your species values order and efficiency. Those are good qualities, but they can also be limitations. Humans value chaos and unpredictability. We see problems as puzzles to be solved, not obstacles to be overcome through force. Admiral Kekstar was quiet for a long moment. What do you want from the galaxy, Captain Morrison? Are you planning to conquer us the way we tried to conquer you? Jake shook his head. We do not want to rule anyone. We want to explore, to learn, to grow. We want to meet new species and discover new ideas. We want to build a galaxy where different civilizations can work together instead of fighting each other. And if someone threatens you? Jake's expression became hard. Then we will defend ourselves. We will not start wars, but we will finish them. Any species that tries to harm humanity or our allies will face the same fate as your fleet. The meeting continued for 3 hours. When it was over, Admiral Kekstar returned to his ship with a new understanding of humanity. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They were something far more dangerous to the old galactic order. They were revolutionaries. The news of the meeting spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Species that had been planning attacks on human colonies quietly abandoned their plans. Others began to study human culture and philosophy, trying to understand what made them so successful. Within a year, the first human embassy opened on the neutral world of Starbase Alpha. Within 2 years, human exploration ships were visiting distant star systems, making contact with civilizations that had never heard of Earth. Within 5 years, the Human Federation had become one of the most influential powers in the galaxy. But humanity had not forgotten the lesson of the Zephyrian invasion. The Harbinger continued to patrol the Sol system, and dozens of similar ships were built in secret bases throughout human space. The galaxy was becoming more peaceful, but humans were prepared for the day when diplomacy would not be enough. As Jake Morrison